it was a conversation that I had with my bestie where he was like, Sam, you are trying so hard to do plan A, and plan
Mm-hmm.
A was 21-year-old you. You're not
Ooh.
21 anymore.
Hola, you are listening to First Gen Healing, a podcast on Latinx healing and awakening journeys. And I'm so excited because today we're doing things a little bit different. I had a group episode, I think 2 years ago, so it's been a long, long time. And I received intake forms from two beautiful individuals that I don't know why I felt like I need to bring them together. So we're gonna see today. No sabemos. We are just getting to know each other, but we have Angelina here. So Angelina, hello. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll introduce the other guest.
Hi, thank you, Priscilla, for having me. Yeah, I'm like based in Northern California. I've been on my healing journey since 2014, I think. Have had
Okay.
a lot of work that I've experienced, that I've been able to witness in others, and I'm just super excited to be here in this space, collaborating with other first gen Latinas that are on this journey who are, stepping into the role of breaking generational trauma, whatever it is, whatever that looks like for you. So I'm super excited.
Yeah. Yay. And I want you to plug right away. You're under at Blissful Latina, I think, right? So you have your
Yes.
own podcast and you're starting to post content también.
Yeah, I my podcast came from just experiencing kind of like what you are. It's called Chisme with Purpose. And I just started interviewing other Latinas that I've met along the way and just kind of sharing stories about everything and anything. And
Mm.
I did take a little break just because I'm also in a transition of becoming my mom's caretaker because she was diagnosed with dementia.
Mm.
Weaving in and out when I can and just being a support for my community.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. And our
Yeah.
next guest, his name is Samuel. So, Samuel, feel free to unmute, say hello, and introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm really excited. This will be my first official podcast. I do have a TikTok organic underscore conversations. I tend to post little
Mhm.
videos and little things of just advice or just things that come to me. I was trying to think back of when my awakening journey started, and I almost want to say
Yeah.
it was around 2014. I had
Ooh, okay.
kind of gone through some breakups, and I think I was so caught up in like relationships that I didn't know who I was anymore, and
Mm,
that's what kind of led me to like seek healing, wake up, and I've done so much work after that. So I'm excited to be here
mm.
and share that journey with all of you.
Okay. Ooh, okay. The synchronicity started. Cool, cool. I say mine started in 2016, and I'm curious to maybe ask you guys, do you see it as the beginning of the awareness or the beginning of the mess? Because when I say 2016, I think of it as the beginning of the mess, when everything started to like kind of like a tower moment, right? Or like where everything starts to crumble, lose maybe the clarity that I had about things, about my relationships. So, yeah, I guess I'm curious about you two. What do you consider it? Is it when you were like getting the epiphanies or when things started to not make sense?
Honestly, for me personally, I think it was more the awareness that I remembered that the life that I was living wasn't serving me. And that I knew that there
Mm,
was this other life I had either experienced before that felt like home or that felt like who I'm supposed to be, but I was just kept ignoring it. And so,
mm,
um, after that, I felt really clear. Like things just kind of started snowballing. People started showing
okay.
up in my life. And it was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So, yeah.
Okay. The awareness. All right. And then Samuel, what about you?
I think for me, like that waking up or like awareness it does kind of come after the mess for me.
Mhm.
I think I think to your point, Priscilla, it's like kind of cleaning up the mess or like letting crap
Mm.
go and like having that tower moment. Because I think for me, I was kind of going through life, experiencing it, being in relationships, school, work, but when things started not feeling good, like I literally thought I was cursed. Like that's actually why I started
Okay.
my healing journey. I went to a
Uh-huh.
curandera and I was like,
Mhm.
I did Reiki, I did, you know, like a bunch of things that were like so different from each other. But I met a curandera randomly, and she was like, um, she had me, I think that was like my first awakening thing where I was like, you know, who am I? Like, wait, am I my
Mm.
parents? Am I not? Like, who is my identity? And when I started piecing together who I am, I like truly was like, oh, like Angelina was saying, like, um, I was like, this feels good. This is what I'm meant to do, what I'm meant to be. And I will say that I don't know if it's just one awakening. I think when you
Mhm.
awaken, I don't know if you can go back, but I
I
feel
wish.
like
Sometimes I do.
I I feel like you have multiple awakenings,
Yeah.
and it just kind of gets clearer, and you know you kind of go through the lessons, which is really interesting.
I love that you
Mhm.
just said you randomly met a curandera.
Well, I honestly, I was like, oh, things were going so bad that I was like, I'm cursed at this point. Like, I don't know what else to
Mm.
do. But I remember culturally, you know, my parents are from Mazatlan. My dad's side, my mom is from San Luis Potosí. I would always hear
Okay.
about like curanderas or like healing, and I was like curses, and I'm like, maybe that's what I need to do. Like maybe somebody
Mm.
looked at me wrong or something. Um, because things were they didn't feel right. Like work wise, it just didn't feel
Yeah.
right. Relationships, there was a lot of jealousy, cheating. It just I was like, okay, finances, I think all my credit cards were maxed out. And it
Mm.
wasn't until I was starting my healing process that things started kind of the mess that I
Mhm.
was present to, it kind of started like piecing away, you know, and things started
Mhm.
feeling better. Um, you know, I got back into the university after being disqualified twice. My credit cards were, I started paying them off. And it's not like I ran into like money or anything. It's just I just started healing and things just kind of
Mhm.
started falling into place, which I think is
Mm.
really interesting about this awakening process.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. And then Angelina, I'm curious, you said it stood out to you that he said randomly. Do you have like an
Mhm.
idea, like for you, is it like nothing is at random, or why do you think it stood out to you?
I think I've learned and I've witnessed that, you know, the divine spirit, whatever, how you call God, the universe comes through to us through the path of least resistance. Right. And so when we're in that space, at least this was my experience, where you're just like,
Mhm.
I give up. Like I'm okay. I thought that I was kind of going and I'm in control, and then all of a sudden you're like in this middle of how you called it mess, and you're just like, okay, I'm willing to do what I'm being called to do, and then all of a sudden you align right into this frequency and you don't resist it. And so then that's when
Mm.
like the shifts start to happen because you are actually in the place where you need to be. And I find this a lot, especially first gens, right? Because we grew up with this idea, at least my experience been, go to school, you get a good job, you get married, you have kids, you become the homemaker, and you just keep going in this cycle. Never once did I ever hear put yourself first. Never once was
Yeah.
I like, when you talk about, to someone's point, a curandera, at least in my perspective or in my experience, esas cosas son del diablo, like, don't do
Mm,
that, and so then you have to dismantle all the things that you feel are being called to step into, and then work through the guilt around it. So
mm,
yeah, I just
mhm.
think, things come to the path of least resistance. And for me, it was finding a medical intuitive, because for me, that made it like acceptable because she was
Less,
a
yeah.
doctor,
Less
right?
taboo. Okay.
Yeah, less taboo, even for myself, to just allow myself to have that experience. And she was a medical doctor who was practicing Reiki at the time. So
Okay.
I was like, I actually had a business coach at the time, and she was like, "You need to go do like." I pulled a card, and it said you need to go have energy work, and I was like, "That sounds witchcraft. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm Mexican. I
Yeah.
don't do that." Even the thought of yoga, like, I actually had my Kaiser doctor say, "You
Mm.
need to go do yoga," and I was like, "I'm Mexican. We don't do that." Like, how, how ignorant, like, on my part at that time, And I had my first Reiki session, and literally walked out of there like I had 20 pounds of emotional weight lifted out of me. And
Mm.
and she said, "You're meant to be doing this work." And I was like, "What?" So yeah, it was,
Wow.
that was
Okay.
my path of least resistance. I was at a point where,
Yeah.
like, I was having a lot of health issues. And I just kind of put my hands up, cried in my car, and I was like, "Okay, God, like, I give up. Like, guide me, bring people into my life that are going to help me out of this pit that I feel that I'm in." And that's
Mhm.
kind of how my process started. So
Okay. I definitely want to come back to that and kind of like the first gen control, right?
yeah.
Because we do have this plan set out and or kind of like repeated to us, and we do feel the responsibility to bring that plan to fruition because of our parents' stories, our family sacrifices.
Mhm.
I think we grow up with needing to control our experience. And what I think we're all talking about is like that point where we're like, okay, me controlling thing is clearly not helping and not bringing me
Yeah.
the life that I think I should have. So like, let me surrender in some way. But before we get to that, Samuel, I'm wondering, like, did you have resistance for, let's say, a curandera? Was that taboo, or was your family more open to that? Because it sounds like, you said you went to Reiki and a curandera. So like, you were open. Was it just you? Was it because you had heard others do it? What gave you the safety to make that step?
You know what's interesting is I also grew up with, you can't like, like uh like, oh, that's things of the devil, and like you can't do that, or
Okay.
like that
Mm.
person's weird. And I did kind of grow up with like a kind of a fear of like doing that, or like it's taboo.
Mhm.
But what's interesting is like my grandma, for example, me barría con el like a huevo, like, and I was
Uh-huh.
like, girl, you're like super religious, but like you're cleansing me with an egg and like the ruda,
Yeah.
and like I was like, okay, something's a little sketch, right? And then so that's on my mom's side.
Pause. Do you hear that? That is what it sounds like when healing and awakening first gens come together and share authentically, speak their truth, ask each other questions. It's so beautiful. And it's part of the vision that I have for Soul Primas. This is what I want you to experience. I want us to come together and talk to each other, for you to not only hear these conversations, but be a part of them. I'm so excited to say that Soul Primas will be launching really soon. And if you want to be one of the first people to know more of the details, there's going to be a link in the description for you to put your name and your email so that you can get information directly from me. Okay, let's continue with this beautiful conversation.
And then my dad's side, I would hear stories that like he my grandpa shape shifted and like stole meat
Mhm.
from my family because, we were hungry, right? We were poor. And
Oh, okay.
um,
Whoa.
I would hear these stories, hear the
Yeah.
conflicting part. So then I think for me, I had to you ladies were mentioning, is like I just kind of had to break through that. And I got to the point where I felt like I was drowning, and I was like, I have to do something, anything, and the
Mhm.
only thing I could think to do is like take this curse away or heal, or let me try Reiki. And I mean, I did physical
Yeah.
things too, acupuncture and things
Yeah.
like that.
Mm.
And I loved when my grandma would cleanse me with stuff, and but it just didn't feel like it was enough. So I had to keep doing more and more. And then when I got to the point of like truly awakening, I was like, okay, this. And now I've done, like I just 2 weeks ago I spoke to a psychic medium.
Mm.
I'm thinking of starting like there's like a witchy school that's like nearby that I was like, I didn't even know that existed. Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, my people. So yeah,
Wow.
definitely more open
Okay.
to it. And like once I broke through, I was like, I need more. Like,
Mhm. Okay. I love that we're talking about the taboo part of it. I was just talking to a friend too. We were saying how like sometimes it's easier to talk about our healing journey, but it's a lot harder to talk about the awakening aspect of it or the energetics and all of these things.
Mhm.
And we were both like, I wonder why. Obviously, I think we know why, but it is sometimes so hard to embody what you're coming into awareness of. It's like, oh yeah, but it's not mine. Oh yeah, but I just did it once. Or maybe I don't tell people, or maybe like I go in not believing it, like como testing it. Let me test if
Mhm.
this is real, let me test if this actually works. And so I think it's really cool that we get to like be on here and then talk about it, like, yeah, I tried it, and yes, I felt weird about it, or I felt like and then now I'm like, ooh, I want more. Let me fully step into that. And isn't that so cool? Like once we como que we step in those shoes, other things start
Mhm.
to align. Like you find this school. Like for me, it's finding aligned people. Or I know maybe you guys don't know my story, but I lived in Tennessee for 2 years in the middle of nowhere, like a little small town, right? Donde había como muchas vacas and like nothing. And there was this coffee shop, and I was in the midst of like stepping into those shoes, right? Of like, oh, I'm an intuitive, I like this stuff. I don't think I was saying it out loud, but in my own journey, I was like, yes, like more. And I went to this coffee shop and I looked across the street and it was like, I forgot how it was called. Kind of like Botanica vibes, but it was,
Mhm.
in English. So I don't remember what it was called. But
An
I
apothecary?
went in there. Uh-huh, yes, yeah. And so I walk in there and the lady is talking to a customer about Reiki classes, and she's like, "Oh yeah, like we give Reiki classes here." And I was like, "Here in the middle of nowhere? Like what?" And so there I bought my first like oracle deck, and I don't know, it's just cool, like how like sometimes we think we're walking these paths alone or we wouldn't be
Mhm.
understood, but the reality is that I think like little light bulbs where a lot of us are being initiated at similar times. And um and I think it's just a matter of like being able to accept it or embrace it. Maybe we can talk about that control aspect. How did that feel, that shift from like I'm used to figuring things out on my own, maybe, to like I surrender, and or at least for me, and it sounds like well, you guys can tell me if it sounded that way for you guys, but it was a I surrender, I recognize like I'm not in control as I thought,
Mhm.
as in control as I thought I was, and I need some assistance. So like universe or whoever you are, God, like ayúdame.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about those moments. Like what did they look like? How did they feel? How did you experience them?
just wanted to share that I think for me, in that journey that I was going through, um, my I was having a conversation where like things were going so bad, and I was still trying to push on plan A. Plan A
Mm.
was, Priscilla, like you mentioned, go to school and, get the job. And, I was a sales manager. I was making $20 an hour at the time. And I was in a okay place, but everything felt crappy, right? And it
Mm.
wasn't until like I pushed on plan A, got disqualified from my university twice, um, didn't file bankruptcy. I just decided, no, I'm going to pay it. And then it was a conversation that I had with my bestie where he was like, Sam, you are trying so hard to do plan A, and plan
Mhm.
A was 21-year-old you. You're not
Ooh.
21 anymore. Like, stop
Okay.
trying to go for business administration with the focus on management. Like, it's not working, right? Like, you're trying to
Mm.
force this thing that is just not meant for you. This doesn't feel right. And I said, you know what? I I took a human services class. Like, I'm getting light bulbs, and my idea of opening my own business is now my own organization to help others. And it like kind of it was
Mm.
the same but different. And
Mhm.
as soon as and it's funny because he's like, it's time to plan B this bitch. And I will always remember
Ooh.
that because that's what I did is I just let go of plan A and just said, okay,
Yeah.
social work isn't going to
Mhm.
make me, $1 million, or maybe it will. I don't know yet. But I knew that the fire had started and it rekindled, and
Mm.
it felt good. I liked going to school again. And then that's when everything else eased up. The debt was coming down, and I eventually got to the point where all the debt was gone. And I was
Wow.
like, oh my gosh, this is possible. I got back
Mhm.
into the university, and now I graduated not just with my bachelor's, which I was struggling so hard to do after 10 years, but I got a master's. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do it. So
Wow.
I think yeah, there's absolutely moments where like we're just kind of fighting ourselves for that plan
Mhm.
A. And maybe the plan A that was started when we were 18, or what we thought society wanted us to do, or what our parents wanted us to do. And it wasn't the plan. That wasn't what was meant to be. So that little shift could change your entire life.
It's huge. Okay, I like the what is it? Let's plan B this bitch.
Yeah, I was gonna say you need to put that on a shirt, hashtag, like something, 'cause
Yeah.
that's a keeper.
Literally. Oh my gosh. Because it's like for us, well, I in the intro of this podcast, I say that like, how could I let go of plan A? Like this was the dream. This was what I was supposed to do. And so similarly, I feel like I was on paper, it was like you're doing fine ish,
Mhm.
but inside, like I felt like my soul was, like dying basically. Um, so I had a question before we move on or before we go to Angelina. Plan A. Okay, when you created Plan A, can we talk a little bit about that? Because I think sometimes no nos damos cuenta, but it is true that maybe we build it from a place of others' expectations or from like the little glimpses that we get. Because sometimes as first gens, we're navigating this world on our own or like this country. And so we get a glimpse of like, oh, they make okay money. Okay, then I need to go that way. Instead of that calls my name, that makes me happy, that would fulfill me. It's more logical or practical. Do you feel like your plan A was created like that, someone?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a very analytical person, and
Mm,
my thing was, okay, let's go to Cal State Fullerton. They're a really good business school, and we live in a capitalistic society. Let's create some kind of business, even though they all,
mm,
tend to fail. And that's where I was like trying to be so meticulous about it
mhm,
and forcing something that, like you mentioned, it just didn't feel right in my soul. And
Mm.
why would that feel right? I'm struggling. There was so much that um, I felt just on my shoulders, and it just needed to be pieced, and with letting go of plan A, it wasn't like, I forgot about everything. I think what it was is like I was carrying this huge boulder on my back, on continuing in my journey, trying so hard to get there. And what I did is I just kind of pieced it away and left
Mm.
it on the journey. So if I look back, it's still there. It's I didn't forget about it because honestly, that's who made me who I am today.
Mhm.
Those times that I struggled to make school happen or work happen, it made me who I am today. So,
Mhm.
I think people say like, "Oh, if you had to do it all over again, would you do it the same?" I maybe have to because that's
Mm-hmm.
who kind of made me learn and be the person I am today. Without it, I wouldn't be here, you know?
Mhm. Ooh, okay. I love it. Even like the big boulder turning into little rocks and like also creating the new path ahead, you know? I think I don't know, for people I think those are like little activators because we tend to then like maybe shame ourselves or feel like, oh, this was a waste of time. But the reality is like there are things that you were picking up along the way that are gonna serve you in this new path, this new reroute or plan B. So okay, cool. All right, Angelina, tell us about your kind of like, yeah, moment of plan B or surrender,
um,
pues.
so I feel a little fortunate that my plan A is still an embodiment of my plan B in the sense that I have always worked in healthcare since I was 19. And so I worked with a cardiologist who used to tell me, like, you're great at this. Like, there was something about the heart that for me, I mean, I know why the connection now, but
Mhm,
at the time I did it. And it just fascinated me. Like, the fact that it runs on, like, an electrical frequency. And so, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to become either a PA or a nurse practitioner. And I was like, laser focused on that. And when I was about to turn 40, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And then a good friend of
mhm,
mine lost her vision due to like a medical malpractice situation. And so for the first time, I was kind of looking at the healthcare industry from a different perspective, more from
mhm,
like uh, a patient because I was going with my dad, through his experiences and what the doctors were saying. And I was just like, this does not feel good to me. Like what, like these techniques and all the things that they're saying are making the people I love look sicker, feel sicker. And so I was like, but how am I gonna like just give up? I had just spent like, 4 years going to school to get my bachelor's. I was about to apply to
mhm,
the PA program at Stanford here, and I was like, but I just spent like money, time, energy going to school, doing this, and now what are people gonna say that I'm crazy? And
mhm,
I remember my mom was like, you know, how how what do you mean you're not gonna keep going? And I was just like, I don't know, mom. I don't it doesn't feel right. And so I went to go work for a corporate company, which I don't recommend ever. And I spent 2 years there. But what I did learn is kind of how people diversify their portfolios, even though a company can be one thing, but they have these other
mhm,
avenues of like how do they invest, right? And so I sat with an intuitive, and he said, Angelina, you are um the priestess of the heart, is what he said to me. And I was like, what does that even
Wow.
mean? Like, and so he's like, you just need to lean into that, like love on people from a different perspective. And so I got into like nutritional coaching, and I
Mm,
started reconnecting back with my ancestry, the curanderismo side, how we heal through herbs and rituals and sitting in ceremonies. And I was like, it just felt like so alive in me. The first time I sat in a ceremonial prayer circle and I heard a woman play the drum, it was like it was calling to my heart, like, okay, this is what is the medicine. And so that kind of started my 10-year journey of, sitting in ancestral ways and learning about my culture. I went back to study like the type of herbs that are used in Mexico where I'm from. I started asking aunts, and I didn't have the opportunity to sit with my grandmother because at that time she was already older, and like I didn't get a chance to. But I did get a lot of like cool stuff from my aunts, and I learned recently that my grandmother used to give women who were about to um, give birth. She would give them cacao, which is something that I
Okay,
sat with
interesting.
very many times. And so then I was like, this is the connection. And so I kind of just started sharing those things that I was doing to heal myself. And before I know it, people were coming and they're like, what are you doing? Like, you look happier. And life just started flowing, to Samuel's point of like, things became easy, when instead of it being hard and feeling like I was hitting a brick wall of like, but if I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, why aren't things working out for me? Why is this so hard? Um, and we started being in flow. And then I learned what that felt like. And I thought, this is fun. Like, this is easy. Like, anytime I say life is easy, people look at me like, why do you say that? Sometimes people think like, why are you always so happy? And I'm like, why wouldn't I be? Like, I get to be who I'm meant to be every single day. I show up how I am. I love on people unconditionally. I'm I get to bring my light. Like, why wouldn't I be happy? And they're just like, okay, you know,
Ooh. Yeah.
but not everyone is on that frequency yet. And so
Oh, yeah.
I'm very aware of that. And so,
Yeah.
I just like to send love and to people. And so, full circle moment was when, I sat in like you guys know who Jay Shetty is?
Mhm.
Okay. So I sat in one of his,
He's like, for Samuel, because he was like
Yes.
yeah,
he's like a motivational speaker, I know that much, and I see
Okay.
him, yeah,
yeah.
but maybe you can give us more insight.
Yeah, so Jay Shetty was he was going to he I don't know if he was going to be a monk. He sat with monks for a long long time and had like these epiphanies. Kind of the same story. He was going to school. His family wanted him to be like I think a doctor or something. Anyways, now he's like a high level like personal coach. I mean he's amazing. But I sat in one of his coaching classes, and he said, our lives are like an EKG strip. And as soon as he said EKG strip, like I was like, wait, I need to pay attention here. And he's like, it's the EKG strip has peaks and valleys, up and down. And you want that because it means you're alive. If your EKG strip is flat, that means you're dead. Like,
Mhm.
there's no more experiences, there's no more. And so I was like, oh my God, like, and so I had that like first circle moment of like how connecting cardiology into like just, how I experience love and like, how I can love unconditionally, other people unconditionally. And yeah, it was amazing. So I was like, okay, I need to follow this like priestess of the heart thing. So
Mm.
Powerful.
I have like chills because that's so cool. I am feeling, I don't know, lit up because I feel like I don't know if you guys have noticed how everything's kind of intertwined and like you
yeah.
you started off with a curandera and then like you talked about how you went. I think you even went back to Mexico, right?
Yeah, I went back to Mexico, obviously I hadn't been since like a long, long time. I think it'd been over 15 years because I used to go, when I was
Okay.
a kid, and then I got married, had my
Yeah.
kids, and so I stopped going. But when I started doing this work, I was like, okay, I need to know, you know, like things I wanted to know. Like I didn't really know, and still to this day, I don't know a lot about my dad's family side because my grandparents on my dad's side were, they passed away when he was little. And so there's still a
Mm.
lot of pieces that I don't know, but I wanted to take the opportunity to really get to know what I could. And so part of it was like asking my like aunts and my uncles, um when someone was talking about the egg, that's the limpia with the huevo. Obviously, that's been an experience I've had. But when I went through my divorce, my one of my aunts had come down to the States. She literally went outside, grabbed some branches from the tree, and just started like smacking me with it. And at the
Mm-hmm.
time, I wasn't, I had zero awareness of all this stuff. But it's very funny how they say, don't do this, don't do that because God doesn't like it. But there's still a lot of rituals, remedios that they do accept as ways
Mm-hmm.
of life and healing. And so I
Yeah.
started realizing that if I could connect where I come from, the practices of our ancestors, and start talking about it in this new way of life, then people are more accepting, because you're not talking about, really, for me, it's just a different way of praying. And when we talked about, what are the things that you've done to, work on yourself that are normal or traditional, I went as far as getting rebaptized like, I grew up Catholic, but I was
Mm-hmm.
on this like quest to like fix myself and just be happy and content with the life that I had. And I started going to this Christian church, and I'm doing the thing and doing what they say. And the very last step was I went and got baptized again in a Christian church. And I remember when the pastor brought me up, and like I took like this breath, all of a sudden it's like these more massive just questions of like, it's almost like, okay, you did the thing, but wasn't the answer. And so
Oh,
it's like I
okay.
had more questions, more
Yeah.
things not make sense than they were. And I was just like, okay. So I was like, if this isn't the thing, then I surrender. Send me the teachers. What am I supposed to be doing? Because I just felt
Mm,
so desperate to just feel better. That, and then my spiritual teacher showed up, and yeah, and I just started doing the thing. So
okay. Yeah, and then also I love that piece of like cacao because I know that's a heart opening medicine, right? And so
yeah,
then like
yeah,
your grandma giving cacao to mothers giving birth, like that's also so cool and interesting that yeah, like sometimes they want to separate it or demonize it, and yet it's so intertwined. Even right now, as you're saying, like the bautizos, right, that happen in water. Water is so
yeah,
healing and it's an element and
yes.
it's so
Uh-huh.
symbolic, and so yeah, it's all kind of like still there. Um, and I'm wondering, like, you've mentioned spirit or the universe. How do you guys reference to it? Is it like, or picture it? Is it God, universe, ancestors, spirit guides? Like, what do you feel like you seek or have communication with?
So for me, I intertwine it a lot. And a lot of it is because of the cultural upbringing, right? Like I have a deep connection with the Virgen, not from a
Mm,
place like of a religious thing, more the representation of unconditional universal love. Like when I see her, I feel like I can
okay.
bring someone to her and be like, and encompass this person your unconditional love, let them feel this energy. But when I'm talking like to my aunts and stuff, and I'll just say primero Dios, because I know
Mhm,
that's one thing I was able to learn and continue when I was working with my teacher, is that she met me where I was at, right? Because I
mm,
still had that like work to do of trusting myself that this was where I was supposed to be, and that it wasn't like devilish stuff, and that it wasn't bad. And so she met me where I was at. And so I continue to use that with people, because I know that not everyone is where I'm at. And so I want to be able to
mhm.
use the tools that I have to meet people where they are. And so yeah, so I just kind of use it intertwinedly. But for me personally, I always say my creator, divine spirit in me. You know, that's kind of
Okay.
how I connect.
Mhm. Okay. What about you, someone?
Yeah, it's interesting that Angelina talks about like kind of going back to her faith because I think as first gen, we connect to what like our parents, their faith as well. And
Yeah.
I think I kind of stopped going to church a little bit, but in sophomore year in high school, actually, I had a lot of anxiety. Like I had a really bad panic attack, which kind of set me back for like a whole year. And I felt so lost that I went back to church. I like went to go do my first communion.
Mhm.
Nobody told me to, like my dad, my mom, like nobody told me go back to church. I just kind of wanted like answers, you know? But I think to Angelina's point, like I kind of needed more answers at some point because I did that
Mhm.
maybe senior year. I started kind of feeling better. I
Okay.
went to doctors first, and then, I was like, this isn't working. Let me go back to um, Catholicism and do my first communion. And it felt good. I think the essence of religion is um, amazing. Obviously, there's a lot more nowadays, but I think I stepped away again at 18 because I came out. So when I
Mm,
came out, I was like, well, like, I don't know if this fits anymore.
yeah.
It helped me
Yeah.
feel better. It helped me feel connected to Source. And I think it was years later that, when I was going through the awakening process and kind of learning about different things, I always felt connected to certain things. Um, but like, I still keep the Santo Niño de Atocha that my mom would always be like, vaya con el Santo Niño de Atocha, and like just surrounded me with, and moments of validation also, because I remember once I was doing some tarot card readings with the healer that I was mentioning earlier, and
Mhm.
this guy was like, hey, like I speak to, like I'm an intuitive, and I see like a very childlike energy around you. And I
Aw.
was like, really? I didn't really mention anything to him, and he's like, "Have you ever heard of El Santo Niño de Atocha?" And I was like, "Get out!"
Wow.
And I ended up telling him, I was like, "You're, it's wild that you're telling me that because my mom has always blessed me with the Santo Niño de Atocha, and I
Mm,
see, I see the Ganesh, even like ancient Egypt, like Anubis, and just different higher beings, even Buddha. Like I see them as deities. I see them as like evolved beings,
mhm,
higher dimensional beings that maybe like their consciousness it did elevate, and now you know they are on a higher level. But there's so many things out there, right? Gaia, the Mother Earth. There's
Mhm.
so many deities out there, and what I think it is, and the collective is all connected, right? Um, I think if it resonates with you, you can absolutely connect, and whether it be a prayer or um, an ask, like you can connect with even the moon, right? Like whatever energy you
mhm,
feel like you're connected to, and just work with that, right? Like I think
mhm,
everything is energy, and I think when we put our energy with it, like we connect with it, like even the moon, um, with the moon, even it being so big, like there's no way it can't have energy. Like when there's a full moon or a
mhm,
new moon and things start happening, because it's such a big thing and it does have energy. Energy is never created or destroyed according to science. And
mhm,
um, you know, uh, and then obviously like the highest consciousness I think is, the universe, the creator, like whatever folks want to interpret it as. I think there is like the highest consciousness that like originated
mhm,
everything, which I think we try to conceptualize it as humans, and I think it's more than what humans are. So we can't
mhm,
really conceptualize it as humans, but I think we can make a little sense of it to help us feel more um, aware, you know?
mhm. Ooh. Thank you both for sharing. I think like probably those listening too, we're all in this como spectrum, I guess, or in between, right? Like, and so sometimes we feel, well, if I lean too hard on this, can I still, access this? Or what is it, all or nothing? And I love that you guys are both saying it's like a mix of both, like I too, I have this tree que tiene el Padre Nuestro in my little altar, right? Because it's like etched out, and I keep it there, and sometimes, like recently, we're going through something hard with a family member, and I told my mom, ¿Quieres hacer una novena? And she was like, sí, hay que hacer una novena. So we did a novena, and I like I posted the other day, I've questioned como just different things about the religion. And when I first started to awaken, I was a bit harsh about it. Like, ay, ¿cómo vas a decir, mamá, que esto y esto pasó, right? Or que crees en esto? But I think I've learned, like you guys were saying, or like you were saying, Angelina, kind of like meeting people where they're at, understanding that it's not my job to like, no, you have to see it my way. It's kind of like, how can we respect each other and then, still feel whether it's like that support or healing energy that we're seeking, So thank you both for sharing that, because I think that's super relatable. And I know I've had conversations with fellow listeners and fellow friends that are also like in that in between, like, what does this mean for me now? Or how do I mix both? I know my family's really religious. So yeah, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You don't have to declare, right? Like, I don't believe in this, or if it feels right to you in your journey at that time, you can, right? But it's cool to have examples of what it can look like. So we're almost at the hour, by the way, and I feel like I don't know for you guys, but it flew by so fast. And I want to invite you guys to think about maybe one topic or thing that you guys want to put on the table, and we can discuss to wrap up. But I also just wanted to express like so much gratitude. I feel so grounded right now and just like good, and I want you guys and the listeners to know, like, I've been posting about like, hey, I want guests on the podcast and taking in these forms. And by now I've had maybe like 3 or 4 of the people that applied on. So I've pre-recorded, and every guest is so aligned and it feels good, and it doesn't like, I don't feel like weird energy. I don't feel like, oh my God, why did I do this? And I just want to express that and like say thank you guys for like being up for it and showing up, because it's a reflection to me. I think it's a reflection of what I'm trying to create. And yeah, I'm just really grateful. So thank you both for that.
Thank you for having us. I'm like, oh, it's almost good. Hour's almost here. This sucks.
Yeah. I know it went by so
We're gonna have
fast.
to come back.
Yeah.
Priscilla, just I also want to express gratitude for you for setting this up, putting it together, and even having a podcast like this, and the topics that you speak of. Because I think it is movement for the collective, and it's things that like we're kind of all experiencing it on our own time and in our own way, but it truly moves the collective. And I think we do feel like we're doing it alone. Like, even in my family, I had a cousin that was going through her own awakening journey, and I finally ran into her posting things about bracelets and things like that, or it might have been one of her sisters, but I was like, oh my gosh, is she awakening too? Is she like, I was like, wait, I got to reach out to her. And sure enough, she was on the same journey. And we kind of just like the struggles that we were having, we were both having. And it's so important to have something like this so that folks, and again, not something to like rush or be like, am I awakened, or like, where am I at? It's not that type of journey. You do it on your own time. But I think it's so important to see folks like us, like here in this room, and that look like us or grew up a certain way and things like that. And it's like we deserve that too, like we heal too, and we had some amazing ancestral things before, and that paved the way for where we're at now. And truly heal now. Time is an illusion. You heal everything. right? The past and the
Mhm.
future.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for putting this together.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll echo that by saying that, in ancestral or ceremonial stuff that I've sat with and learned, the shamans always say that when you do this work, you're healing 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. So, yeah, being able to have these conversations, to meet people where they're at, not to, because I think I find that people are always by nature curious. They just want,
Mhm.
one, they want community to feel safe to explore these things. And two, I think when they see you're doing it, it gives people permission to maybe bring down walls and be like, maybe this is something I need to do for myself, or and not maybe full embodied, like, living my experiences, but whatever is for them. Maybe it's just praying in a different way, or maybe it's now, starting meditation or yoga or whatever it is that's gonna make their life feel a little bit more balanced and just more at ease and flow. So, yeah, thank you.
Mhm. Yeah. Ooh. No, thank you guys. I think like that's what we need is to be reflections of each other, in different ways as you both are saying. Like let's reflect that to each other. I mean, I think like in creating this podcast and continuing it, I do feel I don't want to say like responsibility, but I do get it. I get it. I'm like I get that if I stand in my truth, if I make space for these conversations, it's like it is some sort of ripple.
Mhm.
And at the same time, a veces like in the times that we're in right now, it distorts it for me sometimes where it's just like, did I really like learn what I think I learned? Am I really tapping into what I'm tapping into? Like then why is it like this? But having conversations like this just grounds me back in. We're all still on our journeys, we're all still here. And um I truly think like paving a way for a better future is going to be in community. I don't know if you guys have been feeling
Mhm.
that too, but I think it's like not doing it alone. Like yeah,
Yeah.
it's too we became too individualistic. And for us as first gens in this country, hasta más. We've got to like link up in some way, even if it's virtually. To feel this net of support that carries us through day by day.
Yeah, and that comes from our culture too. Like, I think is it familioso? The term where like from family, like you kind of learn from each other. There's like things like that. I
Mhm.
think for like you mentioned, first generation or like those that have come after, it has become so individualized, and that's not how we do our
Mhm.
like our culture is very united. Like
Mhm.
I remember as a kid going to the family parties, which we don't have anymore. The
Yeah.
quinceañera, like the weddings, the divorce, I don't know, like it was always a reason to get together, but like we don't do that
Yeah.
anymore. There are two topics that I'd love to bring up. I think they're kind of quicker ones that like maybe eventually we can go into it further, but something that I thought was really important, and as we learn about like our healing stuff, we seek outside, right? And Eastern cultures, Angelina, you were talking about like yoga and stuff, and their culture is all about like the chakras, right? And
Mhm.
the balancing of the energy pathways in our body from the crown to the roots, right? And there's even
Mhm.
stuff outside of that too. um, I think it's like even that, Angelina, I think you mentioned you did like a circle with like sound healing or some type of things like that. And there's so many things, to discover from the crown to the root, like even dancing or like what makes your
Mhm.
heart feel full, and even the throat chakra, something like a podcast and feeling your voice, hearing your voice, expanding your voice so that like you feel more balanced here and you feel more
Mhm.
balanced in your heart, your sacral, your root chakra, and so on and so forth. I think it's just so important to continue to do those things, and it's kind of related. If it's community, if it's spending time in nature, like where do you feel in your body? And it's just a guide, right? The chakras.
Mhm.
But if
Mhm.
you think of it as a guide, where do you need that little bit of healing? right? And think of like, oh, like relationships have been so tough. Look up, what crystals can I put on my heart to make it balanced? What
Mm.
activities, painting, walking in the sand. I know people like hug trees, and trees take our worries, and like what things can you do to balance your overall self, because you don't want to hold on to it. You hold on to it,
Mhm.
it becomes a physical ailment, and God forbid it be a spiritual ailment. You don't want to take that crap with you into the next life or whatever you believe in. You want to heal now, heal now, and
Mhm.
truly give yourself that permission to hear your body and hear your experiences, and truly, um, going into the last little topic, is like piece together who you are. If you're feeling lost or you're feeling like ungrounded, piece together who makes you who you are. And I started naming my pieces like little puzzle pieces. Like one part
Mhm.
of me is like jealous Jasmine. So like in relationships, like I'm jealous Jasmine, and I am this crazy person that goes through my partner's phones, and like, but it was created to protect me, right? I was
Mhm.
hurt, and
Mhm.
I was someone was unfaithful to me, and this part arose and was created to protect me. And it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that like no la rechaces, like don't just be like, oh, you're out. It's more about who are you in these experiences? Who are you as a whole? And once you start piecing together, naming, acknowledging who you are in those spaces, perfectionist Peter, that's very meticulous.
Mm.
Even like I just was showering this morning and I was thinking of my dad's name. His name is Salvador. And I
Mhm.
always thought it was just a name, right? Just like any
Mhm.
other name. And I was thinking in the shower, 35 years of life. And I was like, my dad's name means savior. And I was
Mhm.
like, and I had to, and it's funny because he called me and I was in the shower, and I called him like 2 seconds later, and I was like, Dad, did you know that your name is like Salvador? And he's
He's
like,
like,
Sam, like people have told me in my past, because I grew up thinking it was an ugly name. And I was like, Dad,
Mm.
you have such a powerful, beautiful name. You are the savior. And he's I just thought that was, I think identity, to finish my point, was it's important to know who you are, and it does
Mhm.
ground you, right? It allows you to walk this journey, walk this world, knowing exactly who you are and how you are showing up in those rooms. Do you need to turn this part down a little bit? Is it a little too loud? Do you need to turn it on because you need to be safe here, you know? So
Mhm.
just truly identifying who you are, healing what you can. That way you can truly walk your path how you're supposed to, authentically, grounded, and to do what you're supposed to do in this life, in this world.
Ooh, thank you so much. I feel like those are two beautiful ways that people can start tapping into themselves, what they feel like they're missing. It's so cool because, like, before I started this podcast, I was working on my throat chakra. And sometimes we think we need to do the big things, right? But in reality, like, how I started to unleash it was humming. So I started going like, and I started to just, I don't know. I actually didn't research it. I intuitively was just like, I need to work on this part. So I started to hum. And there came a point where I had like a full body, like no sé, como activation. And I started to just cry. And lo and behold, then I started this podcast, which is really crazy, right? But like, it's like sometimes you get to work on these things, like you said, it can be small. If your heart hurts, right, you can start just like acariciando tu corazón, right? Like, oh, or maybe Angelina, you probably have even better advice for the heart. But like different parts of you, if you just feel like betrayed, right? Like hugging yourself. There's small, tiny actions that you can do that can be so healing. And you don't need another person to come and love you right for you to feel better. It's like you can start loving yourself right and treating yourself right. And then just to reiterate también, like, yeah, there's parts of us que rechazamos, you know? So I like the idea of giving them a name, that an endearing name or whatever kind of name. What did you say? Like perfectionist Peter. And so instead of being like, oh, I'm a perfectionist and I'm getting stuck, like, what's up, perfectionist Peter? Like, what do you need? You know, why aren't you like letting me move forward? I think that's so cool because then you get to play with different parts of yourself. So thank you so much, someone. And then Angelina, any topics that you'd like to kind of wrap up with?
Oh my gosh, I feel like we could do a whole, like someone said, we need to come back.
Yeah,
um,
part two, I'm down.
yeah, I think for me, one of the things that I work a lot with, with just the people I work with is healing money traumas.
Mm,
And I think, especially right now, there's so many people that are hurting for so many different reasons, but I know a lot of like resources are being limited and people are losing hours, jobs, and things like that. And so, for me, I think that's something that I want to focus on in the next coming, 2026. Because I think when we heal the parts of us that don't feel safe or are in that like lack mentality or scarcity, we can tap into the frequency of abundance and it not necessarily be monetary. But whenever you say money or abundance, people just automatically attribute it to money. And so I like to
mhm,
focus on the feeling of abundance overall, right? Like today I wake up, I can see, I can walk, I can hear, I feel abundant. And so it's like pulling that thread on the things that you do
mhm,
have available to you to expand it. So every single day I'm in gratitude and I feel abundant. And so I think if we can be more aware on a like everyday basis on where we are abundant, it changes the vibration of where you're at and then money flows in. So yeah.
mm. Okay, thank you. That's a huge topic right now. You know, it's like
Yeah.
in this 3D experience right now, it does feel like that's kind of being taken away from us, or the
Mhm.
possibilities are being cut off. So I love the idea of that, just starting with like what is available to you. And I think it's like training yourself, right? Like it's kind of like a muscle that you build of like, what does
Yeah.
abundance feel like, you know, and then getting to tap into that. So super cool. Okay. So lastly, I'm gonna let you guys just mention your socials if you want people to follow you or if you have a website, whatever it is. And then we'll wrap up this beautiful episode.
Yeah, so people can follow me at Blissful Latina, super simple. It's a community page that I've put together now. And I try to just put positive things, share, rituals. I post when I'm doing like ceremonies or events. If you're in the
Okay.
Northern California area. So,
Okay. Thank you. You
yeah.
someone?
Awesome. I do have a TikTok. It's organic underscore conversations. No affiliation to organic stuff. It's just, I like to think of it as like we're blossoming this conversation. It's organic. But yeah, if you guys like what you hear, I love the validation and just continue doing it. Because I step away sometimes. Again, my gratitude for you ladies being available and doing this, and Priscilla for putting this all together and continuing to move the collective. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this was amazing. Thank you guys. If you guys found this episode helpful to those of you listening, please make sure that you subscribe, that you share this with your amigas, amigos, amigues. And remember, First Gen, that I love you, I love me, and I can't wait for you to love yourself. Bye.
Bye.